to have a lecture, okay, from Dr. Lisandra, okay, from UGM. Okay, she's going to give us a lecture on membrane technology. Okay, and Dr. Lisa, can you, if you want to try to share your screen or for your slide, you can. Okay. Before Dr. Lisa start her lecture, I would like to give a brief introduction on our speaker today. Okay, Dr. Lisandra Marbella is an assistant professor at the Department of Chemical Engineering, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. She obtained her Bachelor of Engineering from Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia, her Master of Science, European Master Program in Materials Science from the University of Aveiro, Portugal, and University of Aalborg, Denmark. And her PhD is in Doctor of Bioscience Engineering from KU Leuven University, Belgium. Her research interests include membrane technology, bioprocess engineering, and wastewater treatment technology. And she has been awarded an overseas research grant from Kurita Water and Environment Foundation from Japan in 2019. Besides research, she also active involved in various communities service activities in the area of wastewater treatment technology. Okay, so Dr. Lisa, I will give this session for you to share your lecture.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mimi, for kind introduction. So, yes, my name is Lisandra Marbilia. Normally, people can call me Lila, so it's a short name from UGM from Indonesia. So, if I can introduce myself again. Actually, I just take this opportunity to bring my country, although we are very close. So this is Indonesia, and UGM is in Java Island. So if you can see here, and Yogyakarta is somewhere around here. So probably in the future, if you come to Yogyakarta or UGM, then you can visit us here. And so Jogja is very known as a cultural city, and we have several temples close by. So it's very culture because we still also have a king and something like that. So it's very nice in my point of view. And UGM, it's actually one of the oldest and one of the biggest university in Indonesia. Now we have a total student body around 47,000 students. We have 265 study programs. So I work in the Department of Chemical Engineering, and we also have civil engineering, environment, and something like that related. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk about membrane technology applications for environmental protection. So the outline for my sharing today is the first will be membrane technology basics in the introduction. Afterward, there will be some applications, and afterward there will be some trend and challenges in the membrane technology. So the first one is membrane technology basics and introduction. So if participants can give chat, I don't know if you can answer. If you try to take a look around, do you know if membrane exists around you? Do you know what membrane filter exists around you in your daily living? I don't know if you can think of something. You can chat. I don't know if students or other participants can think about something. No, still? Yeah, well, okay, then normal water filter. Yeah, thank you, Pak Andri. Exactly, water filter. So if I can point out, so actually we are close, we live close also to membranes. If you make coffee, then you use also filter, membrane filter. If you vacuum clean, then there is also bag filter. And then nowadays, if you have this live straw, I don't know if you see this live straw. So this is also a membrane filter. So yeah, filter and membrane, they are everywhere. And what they are for actually. what is membrane process and what is membrane used for? So it's actually to separate. So in this case of this coffee, then you want to separate the coffee particles with the water, and also in this case, in the back vacuum, you want to separate the particulates, the dust from the air, and then in this case, you want to separate the clean water with the dirt, like the bad bacteria, so you can drink. So membrane is actually a separation processes. So membrane is semi-permeable barriers around here. Wait. Oh, my pen is not working. Okay, so membrane is here. Oops, sorry. Oh, it's not working. Okay. So wait, I'm using pen. But anyway, so membrane is here, and then it's a semi-permeable barrier. You have mixture of something, so this is we call feed, and then we want to separate. In that case, we have water, for example, and then particles of coffee, right? Then we will have only the water. So it's basically a separation processes, but it's actually relatively new if we compare to other separation processes like sedimentation, centrifugation, and other separation processes. So it's relatively new, but it is used for a wide range of application. So it's written here. So we have a feed, and then we have this semi-permeable barrier, and then we get permeate, and then the retentate. So the clean one, and then the other one is the rejected one. So what is the driving force? The normal one is driving force of pressure. So if we have different pressure, but we can also have different concentration or different temperature. So why is it important? Separation processes and membranes. If we talk about environmental protection, we see a bigger picture of this image. What we see here is that we have chemical industry, we have, for example, agricultural industry. We also have houses. We have mining. So we have different types of people activities, right? And then here are some processes which are energy intensive, and membrane also can work there for the separation processes. There are also a lot of wastewater produced. We have polluted water, and then there is also a need to separate the water and the pollutant, but we also have polluted air. So there are really a lot of application that separation and in some of the membranes can be used for. So membrane technology can be used for process intensification in chemical industry or in general in processes, and also they can be used for purification of wastewater and also for air pollution, for gas separation. So next, I'm going to talk about the basics of the membrane. So that's the background why it's very important, and nowadays it's becoming used in a lot of areas. So basically, membrane processes can be differentiated into different names depending on the pore size of the membrane. So if you remember, we have a process, something like that. We have the feed, and then we have the retentate, and then we have filtrate. So this semi-permeable barrier, the membrane itself, it has different pore size. So in micrometers, whether it's macroparticle or it's microparticle or macromolecular or ionic range, depending what we want to separate, then we can name different types of membranes. The first one is the normal filter, so we can call it particle filtration, but we can also have the membranes. This is called microfiltration. If we can separate bacteria, latex emulsion, for example, and then we can also have ultrafiltration. This is used for separation of viruses, proteins. We can also have nanofiltration if we want to separate smaller organic monomers like sugars. We also have reverse osmosis when we want to separate salts. And then more denser, we can also have dense membrane if we want to separate gases like nitrogen and oxygen, or methane and CO2, for example. So depending on the physical properties of the membranes, the pore size, membrane is differentiated into different types. So what about the history of the membrane? So it's actually started in the beginning of 1920 in Germany. So it was actually during the war or something like that, where there is a need for the people to have clean water to drink. So it was the microfiltration filter, the first one which is found, and then it's used to remove the bacteria from water. Afterward, it was improved, and then they found hemodialysis, if you know this membrane. So this is one of the most used membrane. It's for kidney. So if you have a disease for your kidney, and then it separates the dirt from your blood. So this is one of the oldest membrane also, and now it's still being used. And afterward, it grows for other application, for desalination. This is to get clean water from seawater, and then afterward, it's used to remove water from proteins for concentration macromolecules, and then after 80, it starts to grow to gas separation for hydrogen recovery, and afterwards it also grows for dehydration, organic solvent, it's pervaporation and nanofiltration. So the first one is microfiltration, and then reverse osmosis. Afterward, it goes now to gas separation. So the breakthrough of membrane technology is actually on 1960, when they found a very cheap material, polymeric material, because before that it was very expensive. So after 1960, then it grows very, very, very fast. So if you see on the right side, so still nowadays, actually the biggest sales is for hemodialysis. Actually, it's still the biggest sales, and afterward it's for micro and ultrafiltration. This is mainly for water application, and reverse osmosis also for desalination, and afterwards it's for gas separation and pervaporation. It's still very new application, but it's researched a lot, and now it grows for the application. So if we can differentiate the membrane types, there are two main filters actually. So the depth one is when you have a lot of pores inside, and then the screen one is normally what we call membrane, because the separation occurs on the screen of the filters, like on top of this. So the membrane can have cylindrical pore, or it can porous, so all over. But it can be also dense membrane. So this is for gas separation. And this is also porous membrane when we have also this dense membrane. This is normally for nanofiltration. And this is for normally microfiltration and ultrafiltration. So depending on the structure of the membrane, they can look also very different. So this is the scheme. Actually, this is screen filtration, because the separation occurs here. So for example, we have water, then the water will pass through, and then the particle will be retained on top. While on the depth filtration, the normal filter, it can be made from mesh filter or other things. Normally, it can clog inside the filters. So this is a porous filter. So when it's porous filter, it means that there are a gap for the molecule to pass through. But when we have dense membrane, it's something like this, but still actually chemicals can pass through. This is for gas membrane. For example, when we want to separate nitrogen and oxygen, so the diffusivity of the chemicals will determine the transport of the membrane. So membranes porous and membranes dense. So how we make membranes? So basically the most used one is phase inversion membrane. So it's from polymeric substances. How we make it? So we make phase inversion in a solvent, and then the solvent is evaporated. It's for cellulose acetate, polyvinyl chloride, but you can also have immersion precipitation. So it's all chemical things, but basically we have polymer, and then we put it in dissolve in a solution, and then we let it the solvent to evaporate. So what it remains is the solid polymer, something like this. It looks when it's very porous, yeah. So this is phase inversion, but we can also make from stretching. So it's basically from solid polymer, and then we stretch it, so it will leave holes here. We can also put track etching, so it's like laser or something like that, and then it can make holes inside here. And also molding. So this is for inorganic, but inorganic membrane is it's expensive. So if I normally the ceramics membrane is used for high temperature application, but for the normal application like water application, most of them is used polymeric membranes. So the characterization, what is important is the materials, the porosity, as I mentioned before, the pore size, and the chemistry of the surface is also very important. And the materials I mentioned like this. So how the membrane look like? So it looks like this. So the first one is what we call flat sheet. So in the flat sheet membranes, when membranes is made, it will be like a layer of paper, and then it's potted into a module. So it be something like this. The size, it can be smaller, it can be bigger depending on the application. It can also be formed in multi-tube. So if you see, this is like a straw. And then they put in a big housing. And then the last one is hollow fiber. So hollow fiber is very small, and then they put it in a module, something like this. So for different application, different types of module can be used. So how it's made, as I mentioned before, that the most used materials is polymer. So polymer solution, we make the casting, and then after that we do the phase inversion. It looks like this when it's in a bigger scale and it's a lot already produced for different applications. So this is the polymeric solution is casted here, and then it's immersed in the water, and then it's washed around here. And it looks like this. Normally, this is the modules. If we see the microstructure, it actually looks like this. And then normally, this is we called membrane modules. Yeah, so it contains a lot of flat and sheet membrane filter, and then it's arranged so that the permeate can go to this pipe, yeah, then it's collected. And different shapes is spiral wound, so it's also flat sheet, but they are not in an envelope state, in something like that. So it's rolled, something like this. So normally this is used for reverse osmosis application, and also gas separation. Also they use spiral wound modules. For hollow fibers, it's the same. Actually, there is also the part of the polymer when it's made or formed, but instead of casting for a layer of thin layer, then it's go into a spinneret. So it's like a ring, and the polymer solution goes outside this, and then it immerses into the water, and it solidifies, and it's ready. So it looks like this: the membranes, and the membrane host. It's normally something like this. So this is the membrane. So if we, for example, we use it for wastewater treatment, then we can put this inside a big tank, something like that, inside, and then the permeation will happen here from outside to inside this membrane, and then clean water can be collected. So this is the last one. It's multi-tube. So it actually looks like the one previous one. Oh, this is for inorganic, as you can see here. So this is from ceramics membrane, and it's a lot used in food also and beverages, because they need a lot of cleaning and then disinfection, something like that, in which if we use polymeric membranes, then they can be damaged easily. So how if we compare these different modules, they have different packing density. In some cases, this is quite important because we have very limited area. If, for example, we are in industry, then they don't have a lot of area. Then it means if we have high packing density, we have a lot of membranes in one small area. But if you see, if we can have high packing density, it means that we also have investment because it's quite expensive. But we can also consider the other how to say parameters like cleaning efficiency. So this is also something important because after use, membrane will get also dirty after some times. And membrane replacement, because also membrane can get broken. So this is also something that we need to consider. For your idea, like for example in wastewater treatment, once we use the modules, the big one, something like that, normally it can stay for 10 years. And then it really depends on the feed that we use, for example, most importantly, and also the cleaning that we apply, because it get dirty more often and then we have to clean. And then so these things will determine the lifetime of the membranes, So it has different advantage and disadvantages. So after that, we have already the basic of the membrane. So membrane we use, we make with polymer or other materials, and then the techniques we can have it in already in a modules. So what is it for? So in terms of environmental protection, there are two main topics that I want to bring today is the water and wastewater, and also for gas separation. But as Dr. Mimi said that I work mainly for wastewater, so probably it will be a lot on waste water, while the other just a little bit information for you. So why it's actually important? So I want to bring the fact, the fact that water pollution is actually exists, and it's really important for us to take care, because this data is from summary update from UN, 2000 United Nations from 2020. Actually, it's less than 50% domestic wastewater in the world is safely treated. So for industrial wastewater, probably it's not very difficult because they have the money, but for domestic wastewater, it's actually quite challenging because, wastewater treatment needs money. Of course, you need a lot of money for the investment, and the fact that is, it's very limited, the wastewater treatment. So if we can see, well, actually there is no data for Indonesia here, but actually Malaysia is quite good. I think it's 51 to 75%. So, but if we see in other areas, okay, the red one is quite low, right? It means that there are still a lot of water which is discharged without treatment. And then on the other hand, we know that water is very valuable resources, and actually the water in the world is now experiencing stress. Indonesia is actually already in low stress compared to Malaysia. Here actually blue, so it's quite good, it's less stress. So in Indonesia, in some area, it's low stress, meaning that the water that we take from the earth is more, and we discharge it without treatment. So yeah, it's something that we have to take into account. First one is water. How about air pollution? So this is the data from a book, from 2014, but still okay, just to give an idea. In some areas, this is particulate matters, So in the air, pollution can be, greenhouse gases, but it can also be particulate matters. So the particulate matters in this area, the red one, is actually quite sad, I mean, because it's quite high. It means that actually there is a need for everyone actually to see this, and then to solve this problem, because it's very dangerous also for our health. Not only particulate matters, greenhouse gases, as we already know, it's also increasing every year. It can be seen that the temperature is also increasing from the climate change, indicating that, okay, these greenhouses gases is around us, and then we need to take care of it, how we can solve this problem to reduce the greenhouse gases around us. So if we see from the point of view of sustainable development goals and environmental pressure and impact, we actually have to reduce it. Like if we see this as a time, and then we use the resources, okay, like water and air, clean air, of course, economic activity and then well-being, it increased, right? Because, okay, we have industry, we have a lot of things that we need, human needs is fulfilled. However, on the other hand, we cannot say no, but yeah, well, the environment impact is there, and it lowers the quality of our air. And what we need to do is we have to decrease this impact so that, okay, we cannot of 100%, because human activity in industry, in daily, it will influence to the environment, but we can minimize it. Okay, if we remember sustainable development goals, of course, if we are talking about water, then it related to the clean water and desalination. It also related to the life below water, but also indirectly to life on the land, and climate action and a lot of things. So this is something that we have to see. So the first one is for gas separation. As I mentioned before, that, okay, we cannot avoid this air pollution, and how we can solve this problem. So the air pollution is actually one big problem, because if we compare to water, because water pollution is very difficult to breathe it, because once it's released, okay, if it's from your car or it's from the industry or it's also natural, it can be released. The only way to clean is actually by rain, so it's on the air, and then it can go down by the rain. So what we need to do is actually to prevent, to prevent the air pollution and to control. So if, for example, if we work in the industry, then we have to think really how we treat the air pollution, so that before we release it, we already have clean air, clean gases, something like that. So if we talk about air pollution, then this is one renowned filter, HEPA, high efficiency particulate attenuation micropore, which is used already widely in industry. It's actually also a kind of filter in which it's shaped in a pack, something like this. So it's a flat sheet, but it's arranged with a spacer here. And then, it's just gas around there, and it can trap more than 99% particulate matter, toxic and hazardous. And also fabric filter, for example, this is also quite good in terms of removal particulate matters and also hazardous materials. So they're talking for air pollution. And how about CO2? Because CO2 now gain a lot of attention, because it's everywhere, and then it's from the flue gases, from our exhaust gases, and so on. So we need to capture it. Actually, there are a lot of technologies can be used, like the absorption and the absorption. So this is the more traditional way, and it's already used everywhere when you use MAA or DAA chemicals or solvent for separation. But also these days, membrane is used to capture, to separate the CO2 from the gases. So when we use ceramics membrane, because most of the time the gases, the flue gases is hot in temperature, so the temperature is quite high, so we use ceramic membranes here. But polymeric also can be used when it's not high temperature there. So depending on the polymeric membrane, again, I can say here, then we can really separate the CO2 from the other elements. Membranes is used these days for biogas purification. If you know biogas purification, so we have anaerobic digester. So if you have organic waste or co-manure or a lot of organic waste. So, and you bioprocess it, you put it in a bioprocessing for anaerobic, and then they can produce methane and CO2. So methane and CO2 and other gases, yeah. And then the normal way you can separate it with scrubber unit and then purification system. And then afterward, okay, you get the methane, because methane is now renewable sources, right? So it's clean energy and it gets more attention. So this is the normal way. But these days also researchers develop membranes that can separate the CH4 methane from the other materials like CO2, oxygen, water, and hydrogen sulfide. So they can produce biomethane up to 99%. So this is also membrane technology when we apply it for processes. Okay, so that's for air pollution. Or gas separation technology, and then the next one is wastewater application. So if we talk about wastewater, it's clear, yeah. The right one is clean water, and the left one is dirty water. But what is inside the dirty water? Of course, if we are talking about industrial wastewater, then it can contain a lot of chemicals depending on the process. If we are talking about gray water, so this is from your houses, then it can contain shampoo, it can contain residue from your kitchen, it can contain detergent. So it basically contains organics, nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, and also total solids, dissolved solid or suspended solids. So it influences the color, the smell, the pH, and this is something that we need to treat before we discharge it. So the organic pollutants and the nutrients, so this is, I'm talking about a domestic wastewater, yeah. So organics is bad for the environment because it can cause problem to our ecosystem, because once it enters the water body, for example, here we see that it's discharged into the river, for example, then it can consume the oxygen there, so that the fish will be lack of the oxygen. So then the ecosystem will be disturbed. Nutrients, on the other hand, it also disturbs the environment. If you know, once you see a very big pond color green, then it means there is eutrophication, because the algae grows very fast, because there are a lot of nutrients, there are a lot of nitrogen, there are a lot of phosphorus. And this is also not good, because once the algae is there, it means that the ecosystem below it, the fish, the other plants will not be able to get sunlight and also oxygen. So this is also something bad. So this is not good for our ecosystem. So organic pollutants and nutrients. So what we need to do is basically wastewater treatment, and then we know that wastewater treatment is a lot of steps, in which we can have primary wastewater treatment, if we can have chemical coagulants, screen basin, and so on. And afterward, it will go to the secondary. So this is the secondary, in which there is a biological treatment for phosphorus removal, nitrogen removal, or also carbon removal. And afterward, it can go to the tertiary, if they need to be disinfected, or if further treatment. So most of the time, these treatments needs a lot of area. So this is actually a picture of municipal wastewater treatment in Yogyakarta. So we have this in Yogyakarta, also my house. So our wastewater from the houses will go there, but it's like a very big water pool. It's like a swimming pool. It's very huge. Okay, so this is okay. If you have big area, then that's not a problem. But how if it's limited area? In industry, most of the time you don't have very big area for your wastewater treatment. So in this case, we can use membrane bioreactor. So what is membrane bioreactor? Is actually biological process and then separation directly in one system. So on the top one here, we have the conventional wastewater treatment processes, in which in the first tank, we have aeration. So it's activated sludge processes in which degradation occurs, and afterward we separate it in sedimentation tank. So it's actually separation between the water and then the bacteria, yeah, the suspended bacteria. But this takes very big footprint, as I mentioned to you before. But how if we put membrane there? So we put a membrane, it can be outside, yeah, external, but it can also be inside the tank when it's internal. We have the biological processes inside the tank, but directly in the same time, we also have the separation processes. So this is again a membrane for separation, as I mentioned you before in the beginning. So membrane is basically about separation. So in the end, what we have, it's a clean effluent and also with a small footprint, like as you can see here, yeah, okay, this lady, and this is the big modules, yeah, as I mentioned you before in the beginning. So we have the, I think in this case it's flat and sheet, so it's flat and sheet, and then it's arranged into this box, and then it's immersed in the tank directly here. So it's a mature technology since 2000, and it's used widely all around the world. But still, it's expensive, but it's worth the money. I mean, it really, if you have very small area, you cannot have sedimentation tank, then it will work. So the MBR evolution, yeah, it just to have you to give you an idea that from research until it goes to application, it really takes a long time, but it keeps evolving. From the beginning, they have I think this is hollow fiber, I think, yeah, I think this is hollow fiber membranes. This is also hollow fiber membranes. But what we can see here is that a development from 1980 until this is 2010, the maximum daily flow. So this is the water that can be treated. This is increasing significantly. So nowadays, membrane bioreactor, it's really a major technology in which you can use a lot. You can treat really a lot of water with small area, and also the price is getting cheaper these days. Okay, I think there are a lot produced in USA and Japan and also Europe. And how it's used, MBR suppliers in Germany, Japan, Korea, the rest of Europe, Singapore, China, Taiwan. And when it's used, where it's used mainly in the food industry, stock and farm, when they have a lot of wastewater, and medical industry, they have also a lot of wastewater there, and then other laundry wastewater, leachate wastewater, car industry, printing industry. So a lot of application for wastewater treatment in the process. Okay, so this is a video. I think we can take a look. Wait. Let's check. But I'm not sure if you can hear the voice. Probably not. So it's basically an ultrafiltration system. So this is the feed, and then it enters the modules here. So this is the feed, as you see. Okay, if we can zoom in. So this is what happens in the raw water. This is the membrane. Yeah. And it gets outside. And then, yeah, this is the cartridge. We call it cartridge. It contains 20,000 membranes, yeah. So this is how they put it inside. This is the dirty waters. If they can contain, okay, virus, coliforms, bacteria, viruses, and so on. So this is the entrance. So this is how membranes looks like to them. So this is pores. So this is hollow fiber, I think, because we enter to one straw. And then the filtration pores. Okay, this is, yeah, what what can pass through is these salts, whether the bacteria is retained. And then the clean water goes outside. Yeah, so this is just one example of the application. So ultrafiltration for water cleaning. Sorry. Okay, so what's the left is for the trends and challenges on membrane technology. So I already mentioned about MBR. It's used a lot in industry, but what is in current trend nowadays is MBR when it's used in, for example, office building or whatever. There, it's actually for water reuse. So if you can see here, it's a yeah. Oops, sorry, my pen. Okay. So the building is here. Okay, so the dirty water goes to from the toilet, they goes to the tank, and then it's treated in the MBR, and it needs only very small area, so you can just put it somewhere in the building, and then treated water. It's called surface water tank. It's not clean, super clean, depending on the membrane that you use, but it can be reused, for example, for flushing toilet, and then together with rainwater here. So just using this cartridge module, then we can have water reuse in this case. And the second trend, what is nowadays is combining bioprocessing for wastewater treatment. So in this case, MBR, this is MBR actually, and then we know that algae, as I mentioned before, that algae needs nitrogen and phosphorus to grow. And on the other hand, when MBR treats the carbons, but there is still the possibility for the nutrients to be there. So there is a trend nowadays to use algae to treat wastewater, and then in the same time, membrane, of course, there again to separate your algae and your bacteria with the treated water, and in the end you have the microalgae and of course the clean water permeate here. So this is combining nutrient removal and also organic removal in the MBR. And of course desalination, this is not something new, but this is something interesting because it's used also everywhere. Instead of distillation, when we want to get clean water from the seawater, then when we use reverse osmosis, then we can have clean water. But of course, this is not directly. If you imagine that seawater is not very clean, so normally we need to do pre-treatment. So in this pre-treatment, we need to do coagulation and then filtration. In this case, we can use microfiltration or ultrafiltration. Whether in the reverse osmosis, we have much denser membrane. And afterward, we can have, of course, clean water from the system. And this is used a lot to get clean water from seawater. And then this is the challenges actually, as I told you in the beginning, that when we have membrane in operation, we have dirty feet, and then most of the time we will have problem with fouling. So imagine that we have membrane surface, and then we feed something dirty, and then this dirt will block your membrane here, and then one time your membrane will stop working because the water cannot pass through. So what you need to do is, of course, backflush. So you just pump back the water there, and it will push your dirt outside. We can also do relaxation, in which you do not make your membrane on operation like 24/7, but there is a relaxation like 10 minutes on and then 10 minutes off, 10 minutes on and then 10 minutes off. This is something that is very important also when you use your membrane. And of course, you can also apply air scouring. So if it's, for example, aerobic wastewater treatment, then we can play with air scouring, in which this is the air can push your dirt out from your membrane, so then your membrane will be cleaner. So yeah, this is scouring. Yeah, if you use, this is hollow fiber, normally the aeration will go through this side, and it will try to make your membrane move so that it will not be very, very dirty. and dead zone. So if we zoom to the membrane surface, what it looks like inside, it's actually something like this. So it's very dirty, yeah. But when we put back pulsing, so we push back the flow to the other direction, then the dirt will be removed. So when we put back pulsing longer, then we get clean membranes again. On the right hand, you see that it gets very dirty, especially when we work on wastewater. Then hollow fiber, see this is the hollow fiber and this is your dirt and it gets really, really dirty. This is your flat sheet membrane and it's really, really dirty there. Okay, so what is the important parameter for membranes? This is to summarize the talk also. So this is for wastewater, yeah, for water. For gas separation, what is important is actually because now they are still developing a lot of new material because gas separation is challenging because it's not size depending on the size. It's not porous, but it's dense membrane. So what is important is on the materials. For gas separation, they play a lot on the materials. What materials, what polymer, what we have to put on top of the membranes so that, CO2, for example, or methane can diffuse faster, for example. But in terms of water or wastewater, the research on membrane materials going on in which we can play with the pore size distribution, or hydrophilicity, or surface charge and surface pattern in order to reduce the fouling, because the fouling is normally one of the most problem in membrane in water treatment. Additionally, research on operational optimization is also very important. Like I mentioned before, if we can put backflush or relaxation or chemical cleaning, this is also something that we have to take into account. But remember that polymeric membrane is not 100% resistant to chemicals. So chemical cleaning also have to be research in hand. But of course, if you just buy a membrane module, for example, then normally the producent, they already give you a guideline on how to clean and then what is the lifetime and then so on. But still, if you use it for different type of fit, then it can behave differently. So the last one, it's the different fit or research. The example that I gave you before, it's just like domestic, in which we use the activated sludge, so biological processes, and then we get the clean water because we separate the water with the bacteria. But there are really a lot of application membrane in which we can remove the like pharmaceuticals, pollutants. We can also remove certain dyes, for example, and a lot more on that for membrane separation. And also, for example, solvent recovery, if we use also solvent there. So that's a big field that we can explore. But to keep in mind that always when your feed is more complex, when it's a mixture of a lot of things, that separation will be more challenging, and to create membrane for this type of case is getting more challenging. Okay, so to close my lecture, this is membrane is science technology. It's for environmental sustainability. We remember again our sustainable development goals. We hope that what we did in the lab, what we research, and then what we apply this membrane can be used for something good, and give something beneficial for our environment, so that the air will be cleaner, the water will be cleaner, so that our kids will be able to enjoy it for a longer time. So this is the references, and this is the picture of my group. Okay, so I think that's all. Dr. Mimi, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lila, for that nice presentation. And also, I think I learned quite a lot today about membrane. Even though my PhD is in membrane also, but what you just show us just now also something that not everything that I know lah. So now I know. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Lila. And now we open for Q&A session lah. Okay, for this lecture. And Doctor, we have one question from Dr. Andri. I will read to you from the chat. In Malaysia, we have water refill vending machine that is quite cheap to use. It uses the tagline alkaline water. Perhaps it's the same concept with Depo air isi ulang in Indonesia. Does this business use this membrane technology? Are they really safe to drink or we should boil it first?
Okay, well, actually, for alkaline water, I don't know, but depo air in Indonesia, like when we want to refill, they use, as far as I know, they use reverse osmosis membranes. But I know that some people these days, they also treat water with electrolysis, in which now they have acid water and then basic water, and then this basic water is more healthy, they say. Yeah, but honestly, I don't know about that. But if we use reverse osmosis, yeah, I'm talking about reverse osmosis membrane in this case. If we are sure about the performance of the membrane, so I'm talking about, so if we have a good reverse osmosis membrane and we have dirty water, and then after that, okay, dirty water, okay, water, and then we have clean water, and then I believe then I can drink it, because a good reverse osmosis membrane can remove bacteria, viruses, even divalent salts, and so on. So it is safe to be drink. But if something happened with the membrane, if there is a leak on the membrane, of course, this is not something that have to be monitored regularly, like how is the performance of the membrane. This is something important. I know that in UGM we have this also water filter. They have treated, and they also use membrane, and normally they check the water regularly, because there is a probability for the membrane also to have problem, right? So if the membrane have problem, it means that the rejection, yeah, the rejection of the dirt like bacteria, viruses, how we say, fails, for example, then yeah, we have to fix the membrane.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope that Andri get that. So now, is there any question from the students, from our other participant today? Any student that want to ask, you can ask Dr. Lila, okay, directly, or you can just type in the chat box.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you need to, if you want to ask anything lah, or you need to know something, you can ask Dr. Lila lah on the membrane technology. Anyone? Doctor, I also want to ask you a question. Actually, regarding the live straw, I think that you showed the apa ni, early slide just now,
Yeah.
the live straw, because I know that nowadays they invented this live straw that is used, you know, it is a portable one. You can bring it with you into the jungle and anywhere, and then you can drink from the river, right, using that live straw. I think that one is quite for me yeah, it's quite interesting lah, kan? I like
No.
new.
Sorry. I'm going to share, but I don't know. I click leave. Oh, no, wait.
No, it's
This
okay.
one.
It's okay.
Share. Okay, this one. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
The fourth one, right? So I already see some video, right? On the live straw. You know, they suck the apa ni, river water.
Yeah.
Then they drink using the live straw.
Yeah.
Which I think wow, it's very safe of them. Because they feel like very secure drinking that water lah. Okay. But can you explain to us, you know, more about the live straw?
Yeah, well, actually, this is also the same thing like the depo water before. So if we believe that the membrane works properly, it actually, yeah, it removes the dirt, the bacteria, the viruses. So just make sure that, okay, this works properly, then yeah, you can drink it. So the live straws, I know that this is, this is a good I forgot the produce and the industry, but they did also a lot of research on this. So the membrane is have enough pore size to allow the water to pass through with just a small pressure, right? Because I mean you cannot pull very hard, because you will be very tired, but it's just enough that you have enough water, but in the same time also the membrane can remove the dirt, because yeah, it's I think if it's even tight ultrafiltration, they can remove most bacteria and viruses. So I think in case of emergency, this is like you don't have clean water, I think this still works. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because it's very convenient, portable.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the price is also, well, the price is not that cheap, but I mean for the emergency, I mean you don't have option for other water. I mean
Yes.
you don't have option for water. If there is no market to buy water, then I think this is quite good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's quite convenient. I think if you
yeah,
go into the jungle, or right when you go
yeah.
the area that don't have a clean water supply, then you can just suck water using this straw.
Yeah. But as you see there, it's river water. It's not very dirty. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
there
that's
is just sand, but I mean you cannot drink it from industrial polluted water, because okay, there is a lot of heavy metals, for example. Then
yeah,
these metals can pass through, I
yeah,
think. Yeah. So.
can pass
Mhm.
through. Yeah. So, any question from the participant, from the student? Can I see the student from UTHM? Can you guys turn on your camera? UTHM.
Okay. So there is
Student
okay. Student.
from 3BNA.
I hope it's not very difficult, right? I mean, I didn't put too many chemistry there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to know like what type of materials, and then how to make membranes briefly, I
So
think.
I see, because some of my students, I'm not sure if they listen or not. We'll call their name. Tasha. Are you there, Tasha? Ada Tasha? Okay. Any question? Emma, ada soalan? Huh? Can I see all the participants? You tengok.
Kejap Doktor pakai tudung.
From UTHM. Because if not, we also not sure if they.
They are shy sometimes.
Yeah, okay. Sharon, do you have question? Or Choi?
So far data Doktor.
No, Sharon no question.
Data Doktor.
Pardon?
Dada Doktor.
Tak ada. Okay, Tasha tak ada eh? Okay, I have one more question actually, Dr. Lila, because from the slide that you show just now, about the CO2 separation.
Mm-hmm.
And then because the mechanism for the CO2 CO2 separation that you show, I can see that there is an absorption and adsorption, two types. So I want to know what is the difference between absorption and adsorption.
Okay, wait. It's for CO2 capture, yeah?
Yes, the CO2
Okay,
capture.
wait.
Sorry doktor, saya Tasha. Tadi internet I tak stable, so baru je dapat join balik.
Tasha nak tanya soalan, nanti type dekat box.
Setakat ni tak ada doktor.
Tak ada. Nanti saya yang tanya awak soalan.
Okay, so absorption is actually when we use solvent here, Dr. Mimi. So it's caustic solvent, ammonia solution. So it's between gas and liquid. But adsorption in here we have most of them is solid particles like alumina, zeolites, activated carbons. But in adsorption physical, what happens is just they adsorb, so they interact with the surface of the adsorbent only physically. So there is no chemical interaction. But when we have here, with my pen. So this absorption is when we have here a liquid, yeah. But here when we have adsorption, we have here adsorbent. So this is solid, but the interaction is physical or chemical depending on how the CO2 interact with this solid. If it's alumina, zeolite, activated carbon, it's only physical interaction, so there is no chemical bonding actually. But when there is calcium oxide, magnesium oxide, so there is a tendency also to CO2 to react with this adsorbent chemically. So it's interact with the adsorbent chemically. So this is for CO2 capture, yeah. So the flue gases pass through these chemicals, yeah, or these solids adsorbent, so that the gas afterward will be less CO2, yeah.
Okay, all right. Means that for adsorption, it's actually the adsorb, because it has an interaction between the adsorbent and adsorbate, right?
Yeah.
The adsorbent is in a liquid form, but for
absorption.
Yes. The adsorbent is in a solid
adsorbent.
Form, right?
Yes.
That is the difference lah.
Yeah.
And then also the mechanism lah.
Yeah, of course the mechanism is one is absorption and one is adsorption, yeah. It's
How
different.
about the cryogenic one?
Well, actually, I'm not very sure, but I think it has something to do with temperature. The different temperature so that you can capture the CO2.
Oh, I see.
About cryogenic, yeah.
That one is another method, right?
Yeah, another method.
Right.
Yeah, because normally the advantages when we use membranes, we don't use chemicals, right? Because here you use the liquid or the adsorbent, and then after sometimes, okay, you have to regenerate it, yeah. But in the case of membranes, it's a direct separation. So yeah, you have one flow and the other flow with more and less CO2. So that's the advantages of membrane. Yeah.
Okay, we have one question. Few question from the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. This one is from, I'm not sure, doesn't state the name. Okay. Good afternoon. I have one question here. Just now, Doctor got mentioned one tank called service water tank. Is it only one service water tank in one area? If I put 3 service water tank, is it more effective? Because I first time hear this service water tank. I feel curious to know more about these tanks.
Okay, well, the surface water tank, that's for water reuse, yeah. Actually, the concept what I want to describe there, I don't know where. Wait. Let me check automatic. I think it's here, yeah. The surface water tank, yeah. Well, actually, it's just how to say that? It's just a tank this here, because you see that the surface water tank, it's also receive water from the rainwater. So this is a reuse. So imagine in a densely populated area or in a city, probably if the domestic wastewater is not treated properly, then it will be a problem to the environment. But if we have this concept, then it will be good. So it's just a tank in which it receives the water from the rainwater here. It's just a collect water for water collection actually. The amount of surface water tank, I think it really depends on the flow of your water. If there are a lot of people here in the apartment, for example, then probably you need more water to be stored in the same time, and then how many rainwater you have and so on. So this is something that is flexible depending on the flow the flow of water that you need, I think. But the most important thing is here, the MBR itself, because the MBR treated the gray water, so the wastewater that is produced, into much cleaner water that can be used to be used for surface water. Surface water can be used for flushing your tank or for what your flower or plants, and washing the floor, something that don't need very clean water. I think it can save a lot of water, I think.
Yeah, so actually the service water is the water that has been treated, right?
Yes.
Like a storage.
Yeah, just a storage. Yes, it's just a storage
Means
tank.
that if you have more, then it will be better, right?
Yeah. It
But
really
it's
depends.
more-
Yeah, it really depends also on your need, I think.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the need of the building, right?
Yeah.
Okay, another question from Choi Xiang Lei. For
Mm-hmm.
wastewater treatment, there might have some bacteria or virus like COVID accumulate on the membrane surface and contaminate it during the treatment process. What is the response in tackling a relevant problem? Will the cleaning method be altered?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for COVID, then it's but basically what I want to tell here, so it's related to the chemical cleaning. Yeah, so for cleaning membrane, you can use physical cleaning when you do only back flushing or relaxation or spraying and so on. But spraying, back flushing, it's just physical. So if we are talking about viruses, if we are talking about bacteria, then we need to do something more, and it's chemical cleaning. And the chemical which is normally used for membrane, of course it depends on the material of the membrane, but most of them they use natrium hypochlorite, which also has disinfecting disinfecting in the same time you can do disinfection. So I think chemical cleaning in the same time also can kill that bacteria and so on. Yeah, if you are sure that the bacteria will be retained by the membrane, it means that they are inside the tank. Yeah, then you can do the cleaning, something like that. But yeah, I think the most important thing is the treated water. For example, then if the treated water is to be used for surface water, for example, then you have to make sure that okay, that water is clean. If you are not sure, then you can disinfect the water with sodium hypochlorite or whatever the disinfecting agent.
For COVID-19, I think the disinfecting agent need to have some vaccine inside. Vaccine compound, right?
Most probably, yeah.
The COVID is,
It's very strong.
yeah, the virus is different from
Yeah. But COVID-19, I also read several articles before that. Yeah, I think in Netherlands or something, they did a lot of research also on the sewage, and yeah, the virus can stay there for some time. I mean, it will not.
It is persistent in the water.
Yeah. There is, of course, it can stay. It cannot stay forever, but there is a lifetime for the COVID. So if it the wastewater just go out from the sewage in the sewage, then yeah, I mean, don't play around with that.
It
Just
can
make
impact
sure.
a vast area.
Yeah.
It can affect our health. Yeah. Because nowadays they have detected COVID-19 in many sewage treatment plant, right? All across the world, and now they are, I think they still accumulate the data on that lah.
Yeah.
Try to find the solution for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, doctor, we have some question over here.
Okay.
From Tasha. Hi, doctor. Is this technology also applicable for grey water reuse system or storm water that is collected from rooftop? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Membrane works for cleaning water, gray water reuse. This is the picture that I show you before. As far as it contains suspended solids and then bacteria, viruses, like ultrafiltration, it will works. Yeah, it will work very well for that.
And also storm water.
Stormwater is rainwater, right?
Yeah, rainwater.
Yeah, I think rainwater is even cleaner. I think, yeah,
More cleaner than the grey
it's
water.
clean. So I think it will be very easy. It means that when you use membrane for gray water and when you use membrane for stormwater, then the membrane in gray water reuse because it's more dirty. Then it will get dirty more often, and then you have to clean it more often. But if you use it for much cleaner feed water like rainwater, stormwater, then the membrane can stay longer without cleaning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Another question from Zuraiza. Is it effective enough for implementation of membrane filter, especially cellulose membrane in the industrial textile wastewater?
Yeah. Well, it really depends on because textile wastewater is quite complicated, right? I mean, there is a dyes, but also I think there's also heavy metals. I think metals in the textile wastewater. So membranes, it depends on the membrane that you use. If you use ultrafiltration, for example, then the dyes, if it's a bigger size, yeah, the macromolecules, then it can be retained. But if it's not, then because color and also the metals, I think some of them can pass through. And normally for textile wastewater, yeah, you may need other processing. So normally for membrane, in some cases, you cannot rely on the membrane 100%. You can apply, for example, additional adsorption. So you use activated carbon or zeolite to absorb this textile wastewater. So it will be much cleaner. But it will be better instead of using just adsorption, for example, because with membrane you already reduce the pollutant, like some of it. Then after that you use less adsorbent. So with combining the two processes, it will be better instead of using just one, something like that.
So means that need to have a combined treatment, right?
Yes, it's combined treatment.
Or
It really depends. Yeah, it really depends on the feed, as I mentioned you before here in the research. So it's a complex feed, then it will be more challenging. But most of the time, in these cases, we cannot rely only on one technology.
Yeah, because nowadays even in the treatment plant they have a pre-treatment.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
treatment and then post-treatment, advanced treatment, something like that. So series of treatment lah.
Yes. But normally combination of these 2 or 3 technologies, it will be the optimum one instead of using just one. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, another question from Nafra. Is there any difference between water quality that was treated from seawater using desalination with the wastewater that treated with membrane technology?
Well, what type of desalination? Because desalination is also, we call desalination is to remove the salt from the membrane, remove the salt from the water. So the desalination can be done, you can use distillation, for example, or something like that. But if you use membrane technology, so for example, if I compare with distillation, then membrane technology is more, it needs pressure. But when I read articles, still it's the energy cost is still lower if we compare to thermal treatment.
In terms of the quality of the...
in terms of the quality, for membrane technology for desalination, in this case we use reverse osmosis. Then normally reverse osmosis is not only one step, so normally it's multi-stage. So in this case, what I read from the articles, it's almost the same depending on the stage that we put for the reverse osmosis. Because I think it's, let me show you the this one, yeah. So for here for reverse osmosis, it's not only one stage normally. There is no picture, but anyway, so the reverse osmosis, the reverse osmosis here normally it's not one stage. So the membrane is multi-stage, yeah. And then additionally, pre-treatment is also very important for membrane. Otherwise, if you directly put your feed water in the reverse osmosis, then it will get dirty very quickly. And then the operational cost will be expensive. So pre-treatment is important, and then reverse osmosis, it's multi-stage. So with this, then the water quality is the same because it has been used widely. Yeah, it's a mature technology also.
Alright. Good. Okay. This one is the process to desalinate the water, right?
Yeah. But also you see here there is also post treatment. So as I mentioned that it's not only one step. So it's a long process. But this is desalination with membrane reverse osmosis. So they call it SWRO, seawater reverse osmosis. Yeah. This is established mature technology also used for desalination. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I hope that 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 will answer to the question that our student asked now. Okay, and then I think this one is a last question.
Yeah.
That we have from Ili Zakaria. Hi doctor, how does large recycle ratio affect contaminant removal of MBR system? Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question actually. So in MBR, what is different from the conventional technology is that the sludge is always retained here, right? So the sludge recycle ratio that is asked, right? So it really depends on the case, I think. But after some time, it's anyway we have to remove some sludge. So it's the same also with conventional activated sludge, in which you use the tank, and also you have the sedimentation tank, right? You also remove some sludge here. But from the publication I read that MBR, because they retain the membrane and the microorganism stays there, actually the biodegradation is much better, and also but the sludge production in the same time is not too much. It means that the sludge that has to be removed, because this is also hazardous waste, right? I mean, this is solid waste that you have to take into account. This is much less, so which is good in this case. But the recycle ratio, it really depends on the feed that you put, and then the activated sludge, the microorganism inside your tank. But this is important also for MBR because it influences the viscosity for the liquid inside, yeah, and also the suspended solid, yeah, the total solid or suspended solid, because when it's very a lot of sludge inside, it's very viscous. It means that it's heavy duty for the membrane also. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have one more question.
Yeah.
From Alip. Hi doctor, how to know which type of membrane that is good for MBR, and how to know whether the membrane is foul or not?
Okay, well, for type of membranes for MBR is actually ultra filtration or microfiltration. And it's a lot of industry already produce it. I think I wrote it somewhere here, yeah. If you see, this is really a lot already in the market since 1980 till 2010, from Ziwit, Nitodenko, Kubota, really a lot of producers, and most of them there are not a lot of materials actually. Either they are polyphenylidene fluoride (PVDF) or polyacrylonitrile (PAN), or let me recall, I forgot. But there are different few membrane which is used here, because first they have to be cheap, and in the same time they have to be chemically resistant to chemical cleaning. And these materials is already researched for a long time, and then they proven to be strong. Yeah, so they use already in the market. And how can we know whether the membrane is full or not? Is normally by seeing the permeate. So if you remember, when we have membrane, so we have the feed and then we have the permeate, right? So this is the clean water. So if we apply, so membrane separation works with different pressure. So if we apply certain pressure, we get clean water for a certain amount. But after some time, when it gets fold, yeah. So if we apply the same different pressure, so the pressure difference is the same, the volume of the clean water is getting smaller. So for example, in the beginning, you get 100 liter per hour clean water, for example. But after 1 year, for example, you get clean water only 10 liters. It means that your membrane already get blocked and then you have to clean it. So that's the most easiest way to see. So the flux of your clean water getting decreased. This is the case if you use constant pressure, but also there is membrane which works with the same constant flux. Constant flux means the clean water flux is the same, but what will you see is the increase of pressure. So instead of this, you will have because you have the flux is constant, you have the pressure is increasing. So the pressure delta P is increasing after some time. So for example, in the beginning, you have applied, a certain flux, but the pressure difference is 0.2 bar, for example. But after 1 month, it increased to 0.5 bar, for example. It means that the pressure that has to be come from the flow, it's bigger. It means that your membrane is getting more dirty and it's getting more difficult for the permeate to pass through the membrane. So it's something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
I hope Ali get that question, because Dr. Lila is really explained, thoroughly on that.
Yeah.
And I think I also understand every work.
Yeah, but if you work in industry, for example, after this, and then you work for wastewater treatment plant, for example, and then they have MBR, normally they come with a guideline, and then after this you have to clean, and then after it reach a certain pressure or a certain flux, then you have to clean, and then clean with acid or with base depending on your feed, and normally it comes with a guideline for this module or this cartridge. Yeah.
Should be no problem to clean that.
Yeah, shouldn't be no problem. But yeah, you have to understand the basics. Okay, the membrane get dirty, and then after one time you have to clean, and after that it will come back. But of course, after 10 years, for example, there is fouling that cannot be removed by chemical cleaning. Yeah, it stays there. So after 10 years, then you have to remove it, and then you buy a new one.
Yeah, need to replace the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Lila, for answering all the questions from the student and from the participant. And I think that's all. We are going to wrap our session today for the lecture between UTHN and UJM. Okay. Before we wrap, is there anything that Dr. Lila want to say to everyone here?
Thank you to Dr. Mimi, Dr. Andri, and then everyone in UTHM. Pak Indra also from Faculty of Engineering. Thank you for this opportunity to share to students. And there are a lot of questions from the student. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to Dr. Lila also. Yeah. Okay, before we wrap our event today, we would like to have a brief speech from our head of department, Professor Madya TS, Dr. Nur Shuhaila Sunar. Okay, Dr. Shu. Sorry, Dr. Shu cannot hear your voice.
Okay,
Alright.
I just open the mute. Alright. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Thank you to our moderator, Dr. Mimi Suliza. Yeah, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all. Alhamdulillah, syukur kehadrat ilahi. We finally reached the end of the program, yeah. So after 4 meaningful days of Environment and Water Weeks 2021 program, so here we are today at the end of the program with joint lecture UTHM UGM 2021. So thank you so much to our distinguished speakers in this joint lecture program. There are first lecture Dr. Mimi Suliza and second lecture just now Dr. Lisandra Marbella. And also special thanks to Dr. Associate Professor Dr. Andri and also Pak Indra as well. Yeah, thank you so much. A bit brief, yeah, about our program on the Environment and Water Week 2021. So total lecture series is consisting of 7 talk from various experts in industries, such as solid waste management (SWM), SW Corp, Department of Irrigation and Drainage Malaysia, Maybank, and also from other university like University Technology Malaysia, and finally joint lecture UGM Indonesia. So we hope that this sharing program, yeah, will help the participants gain more knowledge and understanding in environment and water engineering technologies fields. So ladies and gentlemen, so before we close this evening program, I would like to take this last opportunity to thanks to the Program Committee of Environment and Water Week 2021 and Joint Lecture UTHM UGM that worked very hard to make this program successful. So I would like to thank to faculty members, staff, students, participants from many agencies and industries for taking part in our program. Indeed, yeah, this program would not be successful without your presence. Congratulations to all for this successful online webinar since its launch on 30th May. Yeah, from 30th May. So the achievement of the webinar is the result of your commitment of our industries, university partners, and also the attendees of EWW 2021 and Joint Lecture UGM UTHM. So for the speakers and participants, I do hope that this program has left a memorable good impression in your memories of the last 4 days event. I do hope this program and good relationship will be grown and continue in the future. So on that note, I now declare Environment and Water Week 2021 and Joint Lecture UTHM UGN officially closed. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shu. Okay, before we end our Zoom meeting today, I would like to take a picture of everyone. Okay, so can everyone please turn on their camera so that Dr. Hasnida will take picture of all of us. Dr. Nida, are you ready?
Okay, smile. First slide. One.
Wait, just wait for the participant to open their camera. Okay, hi, I'm from UGM.
Yes, please, student, if you are able to turn on,
Yeah.
don't be shy.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Dr. Nida, are you ready to take everyone's
Okay.
okay?
Okay, first slide. One,
First slide.
2, 3. Smile. Once again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, second slide. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, third slide. Mama. 1, 2, 3. Mama. Okay, done. Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you everyone, for attending this lecture. Okay, thank you also to UGM for arranging this talk joint lecture between UTHN and UGM. I hope after this we can have this kind of collaboration perhaps next year. Okay, thank you to Dr. Indra, Dr. Lisa, Dr. Andri, and everyone. Right?
Okay. Thank you.